Holy shit! Talk about incredible first impressions. That was me thinking that this anime season would be full of average stories, and then Chaos Child comes along and blows me away. Here we have an anime that does clearly copy from other movies and anime, but its overall execution is so interesting to the point where I can't help but want more and find out more, and when that happens, I know that an anime has succeeded in terms of its first impressions. So after some apparent production issues which delayed the release of Chaos Child to Crunchyroll and perhaps some other outlets, we finally get what is essentially 2 episodes in one, that's being episode 0, which I guess acts as a prequel to the rest of the series, and episode 1, which is the start of the actual series. That is, unless it pulls off a higurashi and then we end up with an anime comprised of several stories and not just the 2 we got in the first episode, but who knows? I mean, judging by the poster of the series, the current cast will be the cast that we get stuck with for the remainder of the season. So in episode 0 of Chaos Child, and this episode was far superior to episode 1 by the way, we get introduced to what I can only describe as a mixture of serial experiments Lain and The Matrix. People randomly commit suicide in strange ways, and then this guy called Nishiju, who lives in a metal container on a roof that contains his bedroom. Don't ask me how he's getting oxygen. It talks about the recent suicides with other people on the internet, and this whole suicide spree is dubbed the New Generation Madness, and these 3 schoolgirls appear who seem to know all about the suicides and the reasons behind them, and that Nishiju needs to wake up. Very Matrix-like indeed. Then the people in the place where all the deaths happen, Shibuya, descend into chaos as they all just start randomly beating each other up, and then there's a big flash in the sky. Confused? I know I kind of was, but I think the whole point of episode 0 was to set up this idea of a confusing series of suicides and the confusion of Nishiju, who may or may not have created a formula and patent of some kind by accident, which caused these suicides to happen. But if you've already seen Serial Experiments Lain and The Matrix, this episode may make sense to you. People kill themselves in order to wake up in the actual real world, I'm guessing, and the only way to properly wake up is to die in a weird way, but I have no explanation for the bright lights in the sky, which apparently led to an earthquake central to just Shibuya. Maybe it was aliens? Then in episode 1 we flash forward to a few years later where another series of strange suicides are happening. These are investigated by high school students in a newspaper club led by a guy called Takeru, who looks quite similar to Nishiju. I kind of wish Nishiju was still the main character, as he was a really interesting character. I mean, he lived in a metal container on a roof and he wasn't into 3D stuff, but who knows, perhaps Takeru will turn out to be an interesting lead or not. Anyway, Takeru realises the similarities between the gruesome and strange suicides that are happening locally and the New Generation Madness from years ago, and he decides to investigate them despite his non-biological sister being against that investigation. Then Takeru and his friend go to a hotel and they find dead people and a blonde girl who is still alive. Weird stuff. But it wasn't scary stuff though, and I think whilst this anime tries to be gruesome, it never truly reaches horror territory because the gruesomeness itself is so unrealistic that you kind of get taken out of the moment, so those scary moments don't end up being scary. It's not like the anime Higurashi When They Cry, because Higurashi was more or less realistic in the way it portrayed horror. Chaos Child is not realistic in its portrayal, so it's the mystery that ends up being the biggest selling point. After that whole incident in the hotel, we get a really beautiful scene where Takeru and sister are on a bridge in the middle of the city at night, and Takeru reminds his sister that she's not his biological sister, and the scene looks really beautiful and the music was really beautiful. It was such a dreamlike scene. Finally, Takeru finds the blonde girl inside his own school, and the blonde girl tells Takaru that he is going to die. So yeah, episode 0 was amazing. It was complex, it was well animated, it was weird. In all honesty, episode 0 just sums up what I think the best kind of anime is for me. Weird and creepy sci-fi stuff involving young people, and that's what I got in episode 0, hooray! Episode 1 was a bit of a come down, as I really wanted every episode of Chaos Child to be like episode 0, then we would have gotten a mix of Serial Experiments Lain and The Matrix, and possibly Higurashi When They Cry. But I still found the animation, especially that bridge scene, and story of episode 1 to be pretty good, and even though the horror was too unrealistic to be scary, the mystery was intriguing. Why are there people committing these strange suicides? Who is making this all happen? How come there's certain schoolgirls who know what is actually happening? At the present time, I do find the cast of Chaos Child to be quite hollow and throwaway, but I am hoping that the characters do eventually develop in a way that can equal the so far nice development of the mystery and story. If the characters could match up to everything else, then I think this anime could become awesome stuff.